all of you wonderful car lovers out there, and welcome to the CNC Auto Show. And I am Aaron Clements.
I'm John Ryan.
And we are both here to share some information that'll make your car, truck, or SUV safer and to make it more dependable and to make it last longer. And we do want to say thank you to each and every one of you that logged in or tuned in, and we really do appreciate you jumping in and riding with us in the CNC Auto Show. We're here to take those phone calls, and that is Saturday mornings, 8:05 to 10 Eastern Time, 706-863-5800. You can also go to ccautoshow.com and watch the show live. You can email a question, or you can watch past shows, and that's all at ccautoshow.com. And this show is brought to you in part by NGK Spark Plugs, plus a whole host of other wonderful businesses. And the number again, 706-863-5800, Saturday mornings, 8:05 to 10 Eastern. We had a lot of questions last week, John Ryan.
We did. It was a good show.
Yeah, it was a great show. A lot of people called in, and we hope we did some good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And gave some good information to people. But one of the things, we didn't cover that much to do with our theme last week, which was CMB's theme. And we plan to cover a little bit more of that this week. But if we don't, that's okay, because we will do what we love to do most, and that is answer those automotive questions. And we also have a tech tip quiz today. And John Ryan, we have a special guest.
Yeah, you told me earlier.
Get this now. I just met this special guest yesterday afternoon.
Okay.
At about 5:30.
Yeah.
But I talked to him after 30 minutes of talking, I knew that I wanted him to be on the show because
right.
He had a very interesting type story.
All right, let's.
Well, actually, it's actually three stories in one. And actually, he had come in and he was just leaving his F-150. Well, he was going to pick up his F-150 truck, which
Gotcha.
we had done some work on. And he asked, could he leave another car out in front of the shop? And I looked at the other car and started talking to him a little bit, because it was a very interesting car. But then I started tying it in. It was actually three interesting things happened. He had received an unusual birthday present. Mm-hmm. He rented a car from an unusual place.
Right.
And he rented an unusual car.
Gotcha.
Something different. So all of those together sounded like car stuff to me. And so we would like to welcome Ian Peterson to the show. Ian, welcome to the CNC Auto Show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the information and the ride that we had yesterday. It was really neat.
It was my pleasure.
Okay, we will start with the first item that I had talked about. What was your birthday present that you received?
Yes, my wonderful wife, she rented a Tesla. It's a Model 3, the newest one they had.
Uh-huh.
And I've been a huge nerd about Teslas for a long time, and she knew she would make me happy renting this thing. And she got like the top of the line, the performance one.
Yeah.
Wow.
Awesome.
Now, that's a birthday present. That's
sure.
what I consider a really good birthday present right there. Okay, now, and your wife's name?
Oyen.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
And we talked about that yesterday, and that's really, that is good. And I'm sure you appreciated that very much. Now, the second item that we talked a little bit about was it was actually rented from something a little different than most people have used. It's a little different than the normal traditional rental car places. Where did you rent the car?
Yeah, absolutely. It's called Turo. The best way I can describe it is kind of like a mix between Airbnb and Uber.
Uh-huh.
It's not like Enterprise or something else. It's a private owner of the car, a gentleman. I rent it from a gentleman who owns it himself, and it's a pretty cool way to get like unique cars. Not too many places rent Teslas and whatnot, but on this app they do because it's personal owners.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that you already answered the other question that I had, because the other thing that was something a little bit different that you had that you did get, and that was a Tesla and the Model 3, and on top of that, it was that performance item.
Yeah.
Now here's what happened, John Ryan. Okay, he leaves it outside, and he just said, "Can I leave this out front?"
Right.
And I said, "Absolutely, not a problem." I looked out there, and it was a Tesla. So I walked over to Ian, and I said, "Ian, is that your car?" He said, "No, actually, it was we rented it as a birthday present. My
Right.
wife rented it." And so he said, "You want to see it?" And I said, "Well, of course." So we went outside and we jumped inside there, and I started looking around. And I've seen these, and I've read about them, and I've looked at them, but I hadn't actually sat in one and hadn't actually ridden in one before.
Right.
But we started looking at it. What's the next thing I do? I get on the radio. Jim, you got to come see this, man. Come out here. So Jim come out, and I said, "Jump in."
Yeah.
And Jim gets in the back, and we're sitting here looking, and Ian was showing me some of the things there. Ian, that is really neat that the dash is nothing more than a touch screen.
Yeah, there are minor downsides, but it's really intuitive. You get used to it real quick. I mean, really, if anyone, like, people are confused by it, but if you just take a ride in it for even a few minutes, it's really intuitive.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's really easy to use, really.
Well, Ian, it reminded me a lot of an Apple phone because you like if you want the mirrors to work, you push on the touch screen, you push mirrors, and then the little wheel, it's a little small, what do you call it, the little thumb wheel?
Yeah.
On the steering wheel, and you just roll it around and move your mirrors where you want, and then if you was to push steering wheel,
Yeah.
you adjust your steering wheel the same way. So
That's
you have
awesome.
very few buttons. Most of them are just soft buttons on the
Touch screen.
and then your little whiz wheel.
Wow.
So that part was really amazing. Well, here's the other thing. We jumped in, and of course we were looking at the electronics. And Ian, you asked us did we wanted to go for a ride,
Yes, sir.
and what did we tell you immediately?
He said absolutely.
And we did, and we got in there, and that thing was awesome.
Yeah.
I loved it. It had a lot of power. It was, and Ian mentioned to me when we were first taking off because he was getting ready to go with it.
Yeah.
He said you might want to put your head on the headrest.
Yep.
And sure enough, you needed to, because when you floored it, like, well, I don't know if you floored it or not. When you gave it the gas, your head does go back.
Yeah.
And,
Wow.
and it felt really, really good. I love that feeling. And then he was showing me a lot of other things. Now, most of the other items having to do with the riding of the driving of the vehicle, Ian, I was hoping that you could call back during the second hour about this, the beginning of the second hour, and then we'll talk more about the driving of the vehicle, because there were so many things that was neat on that. We wouldn't cover it during this first section. But I thought it was really good. Would you be able to call us back and do that?
Absolutely.
Okay. And I really do appreciate that ride yesterday. That was a lot of fun, and you showing me that, because I enjoyed it. That made my afternoon. And after we talked, Ian was getting ready to get back in his car, and I said, Ian, how about being on the show tomorrow morning? And he said yes. So I thought it was really nice. We do appreciate the call, and great story about a great birthday gift,
Yeah.
a unusual way to rent a car, and driving a car that's a little different.
There you go.
And really cool. Okay, Ian, we will talk to you in a little bit.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for calling, too. Okay, the number to call is 706-863-5800. That's Saturday mornings, 8:05 to 10. And we will have a tech tip quiz coming back just when we return. We'll be going to the calls and lots more. So we'll be right back with more of the CNC Auto Show.
Just an old half-ton short bed Ford my uncle bought new.
And welcome back to the CNC Auto Show. And we're back, and we're ready to answer those automotive questions. All you have to do is give us a call. That number, 706-863-5800. And you just lay that question on us. We'll give you the very best opinion that we can. And I feel like it'll be pretty good. I feel like we have saved some people some money.
I hope so.
And done things to help make their cars last longer over the years. At least a lot of people tell us that has. And that's the reason that we do it, because we love being able to help in some way. And hopefully it does. And hopefully we can help you. All you have to do is call. And if you're not sure if the last time your spark plugs were replaced on your car, it may be good to find out. Spark plugs do wear out. Now, they last longer than ever before.
Oh, yeah.
They you have regular conventional plugs, and then you have platinum plugs, you have double platinum plugs, you have iridium plugs, and some plugs can last 60, 90, 100,000 miles,
Right.
and some slightly more than that. But eventually they do wear out. Now, if you replace them when they're due or before they're due, then everything's fine. But if you wait too long, sometimes that can put a lot of extra stress on other computer components
The
or
coils
other
and everything.
ignition coils that are fairly expensive and can cause a lot of problems. Other times they may even freeze up in an engine. So if your spark plugs are due to be replaced, it's a good idea to go ahead and get an estimate somewhere. There's nothing wrong with calling a place and saying, hey, what's an estimate on having a maintenance tune-up? Now, many times it's hard for somebody to do that over the phone because sometimes there's other things involved, and they don't want you to quote you a low price over the phone, and then you get in there and it need other stuff. An example of that is a lot of cars, we recommend doing an induction service when it's due for a maintenance tune-up.
Or sometimes you might quote out a fuel filter in that particular vehicle. Not
some
have it,
vehicles
that kind
do
of
have
thing.
fuel filters that need to be done at the same time.
Right.
So it's a real good idea to let them look at the car, work up an estimate. Usually that would be a no-charge type deal to do, but at least you'll have something accurate and won't get a surprise when you actually take your car in to have it done. But do consider having it done because it'll make things last a lot longer, and it don't have to be done real often.
No.
John Ryan, let's go to some phone calls?
Yeah, let's go over to Nick.
Fantastic. Hey, Nick, welcome to the CNC Auto Show, and what can we help you with?
Hey, I spoke to you last week. I had a town car with 300,000 miles, and it had a pretty bad skip going up inclines. And there's a couple questions I forgot to ask you. I think you said like a couple weeks before that sometimes the drive system can imitate a skip. Is that correct? Like
The drive line?
Joint,
Right, yeah.
universal joint.
Well, universal joint typically kind of is there more present. It's not really a coming and going type feeling, but a torque converter, if the torque converter has wear, it can actually what they call shutter, and it's basically where it becomes an unlocked unit. And ideally in lockup, it's a 1-to-1. Everything going in is coming out. And if it has a slight bit of shutter or slippage, you can feel it. We describe it as like a washboard, like you run over the little rumble strips in the road type feeling, very similar to a misfire.
And usually it'll do that normally between the speeds of about 42 and 48.
Yeah.
And it don't last the whole time. You'll feel it go, and then it'll go past it. And then if you give it more gas, it'll sort of go away. If you
A lot
give
of
it,
times, too, you can watch it in the tachometer. You can see, of course, not many Crown Vics have tachometers, but some do. You can see it almost come down, 100 RPMs lower, and you'll see the tachometer almost bounce back up and then get back out of lockup.
And I'm going to mention a real quick thing, and I'm going to see if John Ryan agrees with me, because I remember this very clearly. Ford transmissions used to have a terrible problem with that. They would shudder, and Ford come out with a bulletin that said the only way to really take a chance on getting that out without doing major transmission work would be to drain the pan, and then they mentioned a way to drain the torque converter, which was taking a bolt out.
Yeah, the time. Yeah.
And that was a pain. By the time you do that, you could just about get a doggone transmission rebuild. So that was the beginning, I think, of people coming out with transmission flush machines. And by flush, it's not really flushing the transmission. What it does is it just, as the old fluid is pushed up to the front to go be cooled off at the cooler, it goes under a bladder, and the bladder has new fluid on top of it, and the new fluid goes in to take its place. And then that way you're getting a full 12 quarts or more, whatever the transmission holds, of new fluid.
Right.
And then you don't run into the side effects of taking a chance on something big going wrong. You get all new fluid, and it lasts longer. And that, in many, many cases, will either solve or make it so much better if you do have shutter in a transmission.
Okay. All right. So the drive system itself, like universal or differential, is not going to.
No, that usually a universal joint, you would feel more of it, one or two things, either a little squeaking noise as you're taking off, or a real high frequency vibration. Like, and the faster you go, the faster the frequency, and you'll just feel kind of. They make fun of me for making these sounds, but if it helps you fix your car, I don't care.
Yeah.
So it just goes, but you'll feel a really fast vibration throughout the car.
Yeah, kind of resonates
with
with the car.
right now. A lot of people say that just reach under the car and feel the universal joints, and you'll know whether they're good or bad.
That doesn't work.
That only tells you if they got a lot of play in them. The only way to tell if they're causing a vibration is to pull the drive shaft out and see if they move freely.
Right.
And if they stick and have sticky places, then it's got a bad universal joint, and that will cause a high frequency vibration.
But Nick,
I know when I
go ahead. Sorry.
I know when I put it in reverse, sometimes you'll get this little knock.
That's not too uncommon. You have a certain amount of backlash in the rear end and in the mostly in the rear end on
the
that.
differential. Yeah.
And the transmission might have a little bit, but you'll have a shift there because it's a little, they create a little lost motion, or the car would drive really funny if it didn't have that backlash in there. So that don't necessarily mean for sure something's wrong. And in that number of miles, it may have created a little bit more backlash, but it's still not hurting anything if that's all it is. But it may be good to check and make sure that it's just backlash that you're feeling.
Yeah, it's just a lash in between all the driven components.
Now, one other question. When I first inherited this car, it had about 150,000, and I was able to actually drive it with regular unleaded.
Mm-hmm.
Then I got where I had to put mid-grade or to get spark knock. Now I'm having to put premium, and even some premium, I get the spark knock. And really, this car hates Costco gas. Actually, I mean, so what would cause that?
I'll mention that real quick because we're getting ready to go on a break. But either the EGR system, exhaust gas recirculation system, and it introduces exhaust air into the combustion chamber to displace the oxygen and actually cools down the combustion chamber. That gets rid of oxides of nitrogen, but it also gets rid of spark knock. The other thing is carbon buildup on top of the pistons, because that increases the compression ratio, and when it does that, that makes the fuel actually explode instead of waiting for the spark plug to ignite it. So I would recommend starting with an induction service. Would you agree?
I would. I did put him on hold if he doesn't mind holding.
Oh, that's perfect then. If he'll do that, we can answer more questions. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Sitting in the back of a long white Cadillac.
That's right. We do want to welcome you back to the CNC Automotive Show, or the CNC Auto Show. And if you have a question about your car, truck, or SUV, just give us a call, 805-10 Eastern Time. That's any Saturday morning from anywhere that you might be. And again, 706-863-5800. And also, we were on the phone with Nick, and Nick was telling us about his town car, and he has to be doing something really good because he mentioned he had 300,000 miles on it, and we love to hear that because when we hear it, that means that somebody is doing it right, taking care of their vehicle. And he was asking a little bit about the spark knock. Nick, you mentioned that your vehicle has gradually had to have higher octane fuel as time went by. Is that right?
Right, correct.
Okay. And I mentioned the two things that I know, and John Ryan might want to add to this, but two of the items would have to be do with the EGR system, which that's actually, the EGR system was built, exhaust gas recirculation, was built to get rid of oxygen or to lower.
Well, to get rid of spark knock.
Get rid of spark knock. Well, actually, it was built to get rid of oxides of nitrogen
In the exhaust stream,
pollution. And so it's a pollution control or emission control device, but it did get rid of spark knock because it lowered the temperature inside the combustion chamber as it was doing that. And it's something that needs to work, and a technician would be able to find out what's going on with it if it's got a problem, or tell you that everything's fine with it, or you might do some reading and decide to do that yourself because it's a fairly simple system the way it works. Next item. Over a period of time, the top of the piston can build up carbon on top of it, and that carbon can increase the compression ratio, and that will cause actually the fuel-air mixture to explode under compression instead of waiting until the spark plug ignites it, and you get a good even burn across the top of the piston and push the piston down. Instead, you're going boom, you're exploding, and it's kind of hitting the valves, and that's why you hear all that rattling. And that's not long term, that's not good for the engine. So in that case, a lot of times an induction service will make a big difference, which cleans that carbon out of the engine, top of the valves, top of the pistons, and it just makes it run better.
The only thing I was going to add to that is there's a lot of parameters that could be skewed, such as a mass airflow sensor.
Oh, good point.
If it was dirty or reading a lower gram per second, it would, be adjusting fuel for the incorrect airflow. Things like that, no doubt carbon definitely has
lean
an effect
mixture
on it. But
can cause that, and also high timing can cause spark knock also, but unless the timing's been tampered with, I doubt it's off.
Yeah. So just again, a complete diagnostics with a lot of time spent on scan data would show a technician really both of your problems. The problem you were talking about, if it's a driveline type problem as far as a torque converter or a misfire, a technician could go into a parameter called mode 6 and immediately see if any of the cylinders had a percentage of misfire. If they didn't, they would look immediately to the driveline, transmission, torque converter, those kind of things. So, having the proper equipment can really isolate really what component to troubleshoot. So, a lot of those tips and I guess solutions are would be money well spent doing a diagnostics on it.
And Nick, it sounds like you would love to pull in that gas station and push that button for number 87.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would, but you got to do what you got to do with an older car. But it's interesting you got the guy on this morning with the Tesla, because I'd love to get you guys' take on electric vehicles and what you think about how they're going to be as far as reliability or easier to take care of.
Absolutely.
Internal combustion engine. I didn't realize this car is 20 years old and it's got more sensors on it. I can imagine what a new car's got on it.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, there's a lot of new things, but it all basically is doing the same thing. But I'll tell you what, we'll talk to Ron in a few minutes, and then we'll cover some of it during the show off and on.
Yeah.
And
because we just did on the break, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did.
I appreciate your time. Appreciate your time.
Hey, Nick, thank you very much for the call. And John Ryan, where are we going?
Well, you said it first. Let's go to Ron.
I sure did. Hello, Ron, and welcome to the CNC Auto Show.
Good morning, y'all. How y'all doing this morning?
We are doing lovely. And what can we help with?
Well, I'll get right to it. I got a 98 Ford Ranger, and I usually keep my temperature control on the vent, especially this time of year, and depend on the cool air coming out there rather than trying to run the air conditioner, save the air conditioner for a little bit later in the year. But I noticed the other day when I turned it on the vent and went all the way down to where it's supposed to be cool, it's blowing out hot air. You turn it the other way, it pretty much stays the same temperature. I got one of those little things you can put in the vent up there, and it tells you where it goes, what the temperature is blowing out for your air conditioner. And it was getting up to about 100 and almost 120 degrees coming out of the vent. On the vent side, and no matter whether you got on low setting the fan or the high setting fan, it still does the same thing. But if you put on air conditioner, the air conditioner does get cool. And I just was wondering what that might be, whether it's the heater control valve up there in the hose, or if there was that the dial itself.
Ron, that's a good
your
tip.
Take on that.
The immediate thing that came to my mind was the heater control valve. Have you put your eyes on this one? Have you seen the valve?
Yes,
I'd
sir,
like
I
to
can
see
it.
that.
Yeah.
Do you see it physically moving? It should have a vacuum line going to it. When you switch it over to heat, of course, it obviously.
Yes, sir. I watched the plunger goes in and out.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it goes all the way out and it goes all the way back in when you put it on off.
Right. So we can assume that's working. It sounds like a crazy thing to do, and definitely be careful when you do this. If you were to crank it up and, of course, let it get warm with that valve on the cool position, if you could, touch both heater hoses and see if they're hot. If they're hot, of course, that's telling you that coolant's still going through that valve even though it's shut. Because what you're describing sounds like the door is working and everything, because you said it does eventually cool down when you select the AC. But ideally, when you switch it to cool in just the vent position, that valve is supposed to, of course, restrict the flow to the coolant, or the coolant to the heater core, and then allow you just to have ambient temperature going through, of course, the cores. So I would definitely double check and see if that valve is restricted.
And Ron, one other item, most technicians have these in their box, but they're very, very inexpensive. they make a set of pliers that you can just crimp a rubber hose off.
Pinch off
And,
pliers.
Yeah, pinch off pliers that some of them is just made of plastic. And you just squeeze them together and they kind of ratchet shut and hold that shut. So you can pinch off that hose and see if it makes a difference before you spend any kind of money on a heater control valve. And, of course, before you do that, though, you can do what John Ryan's talking about, because if one feels cold and one hot, then there wouldn't be any need in doing that.
Yeah.
But if
'Cause
they both feel hot, then do that.
Those valves, I'm assuming you do have that black plastic valve on there, right? It's the plastic
yes,
stuff.
sir.
Yeah, the little rotor that actually turns to block off the flow. It's not uncommon for those to break, but you'll still see that arm, the plunger, physically pivot. It's just not turning the valve inside the housing. So
Right.
And then the next step
Yeah.
is you would probably, I don't know if you can see that temp door from under the dash or not. Can
no, you
John
can't
Ryan?
really see it, but it does sound like it's working if the AC
Yeah, it does,
finally
don't it?
cools off. So
Yeah.
don't want to rule it out, but it's a process of elimination. It sounds like it's working.
It's working. It makes a little bit of a squeaking noise when it's working. It's been doing that probably for about 10 years. It makes a little. You can hear it where kind of like somebody's opening up a squeaky doors and a.
That's probably
and
a good thing,
scary
because if it
movie.
was quiet, then you'd be tearing it apart, thinking, "Why is it not working?"
Yeah, that's why I know it's working, because I hear that. I hear it making a noise. Once in a while, it'll make a bump noise.
Yeah,
so
that's
I know it's working.
right. Yeah, I would suspect the heater control valve myself.
All right. Well, I'll try that. What you said about.
I got
gently
one more.
touching the hose
I got
and
one
see if-
more thing for you if you'd like to try. Of course, when it's cold and you have it to vent and it's on the cold setting, see if it blows ambient temperature as the vehicle warms up. See if it increases. You know, if the temperature of the ducts get about the same temperature as the coolant gauge, that's kind of hand in hand.
He's
that
got a
they're-
thermometer in there, so he'll be able to tell
yeah,
really good.
exactly.
Yeah, I did try that. I watched it. I sat in it yesterday. Was watching it as I cranked it up. Want to make sure it was cold, and cranked it up and let it run till it got hot. It took about 7 or 8 minutes, I guess. And you could feel the air after about 2 or 3 minutes. You could start feeling it starting to get warm coming out of the vents, and it was
Yeah,
on
it sounds
vent
like
all the way
that
down
valve's
on
not
cool.
restricting it.
Okay, that's what I was kind of thinking. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Because if
Sure
you do
sounds
try
like
to
it.
adjust if you turn we got on coolant for your air conditioning, you turn the valve
Right.
towards the warm side. If you get too much cool air, you turn it up. That you can tell the air conditioner is warming up when you do that. But if you go back down, then it gets cool.
Well, it sounds like you got a few tests to do, but it should be a fairly simple fix for you.
All right. Well, then I sure do thank y'all so much. Y'all have
Thanks,
a good
Ron.
weekend here.
You too.
Ron, we do
All right.
appreciate your call, too. Okay, the number to call is 706-863-5800 if you have a question about your car, truck, or SUV. That's on Saturday mornings, 8:05 to 10 Eastern Time. You just give us a call. Now, John Ryan, we mentioned to Nick a few minutes ago
Yeah.
that we would talk a little bit about electric vehicles and the feasibility of them
course.
and all of the other things that go along with that. So we'll take a break, and when we take a break, we'll give a tech tip quiz, and then we will be ready. We will talk just a little bit about that, give our opinion on it. Okay, that and more as soon as we return with the CNC Auto Show.
Round, round, get around, I get around, yeah, get around, round, round, I get around, I get around.
And we do welcome you back to the CNC Auto Show. If your automotive service advisor or technician tells you that you have a computer sensor acting up and you want to know more about the sensor, I recommend going to NGK Spark Plugs USA YouTube channel, and they have some great videos on practically every sensor. And those videos actually show you in a very easy to understand way how the sensor works. I've watched a lot of them, and they're really good. And watching something like that can help you to make a better decision. John Ryan, I love it when customers, if we mention something to someone that's acting up on their vehicle and say, this is what we found.
Yeah.
I like it when a person goes to YouTube or does the research on the internet, because so many times they'll have some doubts or wondering if maybe you're looking at the right thing or accurate on what you're saying. But once they do the research and find out that thousands and thousands of other people with that same type vehicle has had that problem and it turned out to be that same thing,
Right.
it reinforces what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I love it when people do that research. That's really good. Now, we mentioned to Nick that we would talk just a little bit about our opinion on the electric cars.
Yeah.
And, of course, you were saying during the break a while ago that you would love to have one.
Oh, yeah, I would.
And I do think they are absolutely great in a lot of instances. I feel like that I'm not sure if the infrastructure is completely there.
Yeah.
Well, I know it's not for all instances.
Sure.
For instance, if someone works and lives in a downtown area or in one certain area with, say, a 30, 40, 50-mile span,
Yeah.
then they could come out very, very well. They drive the car, they take it home, they charge it or charge it at work and do different things. But if somebody travels a lot,
Yep.
like, for instance, I made a trip to Nashville not too long ago, and I drove, 6 or 7 hours straight
Sure.
in driving, and it would be a little awkward for me to try to find a charging station in certain places. Now, they are getting there, and they're getting there fast.
Right.
But it's going to take some time for the infrastructure to catch up with what's needed to make them completely feasible in all cases.
Of course.
But as far as the power, the electronics, the way they're built, they're wonderful.
Yeah,
Okay.
I pretty much agree with that 100%. The only thing I would differ is, for me, I could never justify it because it would definitely be a hobby car, and the cost of them are so expensive right now. But, you go to, if you need to go buy a 2x4 at Lowe's, it's not exactly the best car to take. But,
Well, Ford's
there
coming
are
out
coming
with the
out with
electric
that.
truck now.
That's what I was going to say. They're coming out with more and more of them. So,
But I think there's a lot of cases where it can be the very best option available
Right.
for someone in driving. There's other cases to where it may not necessarily be the best option because of it has to do with driving habits
Exactly.
more than anything else. Let's go to the calls.
yeah, let's go over to John.
Hey, John, welcome to the CNC Auto Show. And what can we help you with today?
Well, good morning. Maybe I can help you guys.
Great.
I don't know much about engines, and I don't know much about cars, but I do know something about the gentleman that called in before, and he said something about his car skipping.
Yes.
Well, I ran across got a 1998 Ford, and I don't remember the model name. And all of a sudden, you'd be driving down the highway, 40, 45, 50, and all of a sudden, it would feel like there was no transmission.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way, that could be a skip, too. I don't know if that's what was the gentleman's problem with his car? What did you figure out?
If I remember correctly, he didn't mention this time, but I do remember from the previous show that he was having what he felt like was a misfire, like an ignition misfire, at around that speed that you're mentioning. So everything you're saying is definitely true. If it had an issue with the transmission, it could be, felt as a misfire.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All of a sudden, it feels like you took this is what it felt like in this car, my car. It felt like you took the car and put it into neutral,
Right.
and then tried to hit the gas.
Oh, wow.
I mean, there was nothing, it felt like there was no, like your transmission was disengaging.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like you had no control
Either
over the
way.
speed, so to speak.
Yeah. Now, John, I'm assuming that you did check the fluid on your car, didn't you? Or you gonna mention what you may have found?
We're well beyond that. I know what the problem was, and I was hoping I could offer some
Yeah.
help.
Let's hear it.
Uh-huh.
When somebody experiences that, it feels just like somebody disengaged the transmission.
Mm-hmm.
Took it to one garage. He did something. It was all wrong. And, of course, they charge you money for it. Then went someplace else, went to the original Ford place, where you buy your brand-new car, and that's the Ford dealership, not one of these little corner garages, backyard garage guys. They didn't know what was wrong with it. Went here, went there, went everywhere. It was a guessing game. Until I happened to run across this one garage run by a gentleman who had a son in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
And the father knew the son knew something about this. They were both mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
So he called his son up in Pennsylvania, and here's what he found. There's a module it was electronic. The problem was not physical. The problem wasn't the gears. The problem wasn't the transmission itself. It was a module that controls the transmission.
Mm-hmm.
And with electronic, he took out the piece. I don't know if it was like $50 to $100, put in a new one, and for a couple $100 or less, the car's fine.
All right.
Nobody could figure out the problem, but there's a module somewhere. And if I understood engines better, and I know a little bit about cars, very little, but if I knew more, I could explain it better. But there's this module that controls the transmission, and he took it out, put in a new one, done.
Yeah,
that's great.
After going all over the place, nobody knew what the problem was. Not even the Ford dealership in town; they didn't know.
Yeah, sometimes there's experience plays a good part. As a matter of fact, what I mentioned to a lot of the newer technicians that come up is one of the very, very best things that a technician can have is a really good memory, because memory plays a big part.
Yeah,
and that does happen sometimes. You may have one technician, a technician that may be brilliant. I mean, excellent on scope patterns, excellent on diagnostic
Waveforms,
charts, and everything. But the unfortunate part is sometimes there's certain things you can test that can show absolutely perfect.
Oh, yeah.
And not show any problem there. So that great technician, no matter how good he or she is, may not necessarily find out what's wrong. Well, you may have another technician that may have run into that before.
And it doesn't even necessarily have to be on the same vehicle.
Yeah, may not necessarily be the same vehicle.
Situation, yeah.
And boom, it's not a matter of repairing that vehicle by running tests, but it's saying this same type, I've ran into the same problem before, and this is what did it, and solve it. So that's one of the reasons that technicians are part of different chat groups online, so they can talk to each other, where one might have run into it and the other one didn't. And that's a huge part of repairing cars. There's websites or very expensive sites that they go to
databases
that have to do with pattern failures on vehicles. So all of that makes a huge difference. But that was a great call, and we do appreciate that very much. But, John Ryan, we do have an issue here.
About out of time, aren't we?
Yeah, the issue is that we're running out of time. The time clock is just completely on E and kind of pegged down, so we really need to pull over to this station over here and either charge up or fill up, one of the two, whichever one we're going to do. But we will be back on the road in no time. And I am Aaron Clements with co-host John Ryan Mooney. And our show producers are Joe Irick and Sandy Dean, and our technical engineers, Zach Llewellyn. And we would all like to say thank you very much to all of you that tuned in or called, well, especially those that called in. And we appreciate you tuning in to the CNC Auto Show.
Live from the Car Care Studios, it's the CNC Auto Show with your personal on-air and online automotive service advisors, Aaron Clements and John Ryan Mooney. So climb in, buckle up, and enjoy the ride on the CNC Auto Show.
And hello, all of you wonderful car lovers out there, and welcome to the CNC Auto Show. And I am Aaron Clements.
I'm John Ryan.
And we are here to share some information to make your car, truck, or SUV safer, more dependable, and to make it last longer for less money and less hassle. And we want to say thank you to all of you that tuned in or logged in. We appreciate you jumping in, riding with us in the CNC Auto Show. And we are here to take your phone calls, and that's on Saturday mornings, 8:05 to 10 Eastern Time. Number 706-863-5800. You can also go to ccautoshow.com, watch the show live. You can email your questions or watch past shows at that same spot. That's all at ccautoshow.com. And this show is brought to you in part by NGK Spark Plugs. And the number again, 706-863-5800, Saturdays, 8:05 to 10. And we mentioned before that we had a lot of questions last week.
Yeah.
So we're going to defer the theme. Yep. And we may even defer it again because we've had some great questions and some great calls, and they are number one. So if we get to talk about the theme items, that's good. If we don't, we're going to do what we love to do, and that's answer questions and talk about cars. And that's everyone. This is everyone's chance to wind down their week just a little bit about not talking about politics. This is not about politics. This is not about financial stuff. This
Well, it
is
kinda
about
financial stuff.
Oh, do what?
It kind of is about financial stuff.
Well, you got a point there. I mean, they do. There's a lot of financial involved in cars, and we do want to save people money. But it's a chance to relax and do what so many Americans love, and that's to talk about cars and the love of cars. We'll also have a tech tip quiz, and we do have a special guest that joined us last session or during the last hour. And we asked him, would he call us back and go over a few things? Ian, welcome back to the show. Ian,
Thank you for having me.
yeah, Ian, we have you now. Ian Peterson joined us during the last hour.
First hour.
Or the first hour, and he is back with us. And Ian, we had talked about some of the things in the beginning, and I'll mention just the first part, just to give a real big recap of what we talked about last hour. Ian received a birthday gift from his wife, Oyen, and did I pronounce her name wrong, Ian?
Oyen.
Oyen. Okay, I got it. Yeah. And she gave him a birthday gift that she rented him a vehicle. Now, it was a Tesla Model 3, and she rented it from Turo. And that was a great part of the story. But the rest of the story was that Ian took me and Jim Burdishaw for a ride, because when I went out there and Ian was showing me the electronics in the car, I called on the radio. I said, Jim, you got to come look at this. And he come out and jumped in, and we went for a ride. And it was awesome. Very, very nice. And Ian, what's your favorite part about driving the Tesla?
Got a minute? There's several of them.
Yeah, we do.
That incredible speed, it hits you like you're falling almost. It's so fast. It's I can't describe it really. You have to take a ride, and it's just so fast.
Well, I know one of the things you told me when we started out, you said you might want to put your head against the headrest, and because I was kind of leaning forward a little bit, and when you punched it pretty good, I realized why you said that. If you wasn't expecting it, you can kind of jerk back pretty hard.
Yep. For people that don't know, the Tesla, it's actually an all-electric vehicle, which is a lot of people a little questionable about that. But because it's electric, it is just instant torque. Anytime you hit that pedal, it just goes, and it is so fast. And that's a bit of a misconception. People think electric vehicles are kind of like Priuses on wheels, just driving around. There's nothing too crazy about them, nothing special. But this thing, if you just take a ride in it, it'll blow you away. The speed is one of my favorites. The self-driving is really great. I drove it from Greenville, where I rented it. It was a 2-hour drive, and I was taking country roads, and I didn't touch the steering wheel for most of that 2 hours.
Wow.
I was kind of freaking my wife out. She was getting nervous, but I didn't touch the wheel for most of it.
That was one of the things I was going to talk to you about. And we get a lot of driver assist cars here. We work on a lot of the radar units. We work on the sonar. We work on some LiDAR.
Yep.
We do a lot of different things with different vehicles, mainly because they may have not necessarily having a problem, but they may have been in an accident of some kind, and we have to re-aim different things, re-aim cameras, and do different things to them. I have driven a lot of cars because a lot of them I have to drive to make sure the automatic braking and all the other things work. Riding in that car was much, much smoother than any of the vehicles I've driven in as far as hands-off driving. I was just sitting there, and I'm used to a vehicle kind of going from one side of the road and then seeing where the line is, and then going over to the other side and seeing where the line is, and sort of keeping it in the middle that way. That car was dead in the center the whole time. Okay. And get this, John Ryan, you're riding along and you're in a lane and you want to change lanes.
Right.
You still don't touch the wheel. You turn the blinker on.
Oh, wow.
And it changes lanes for you. I thought that was really neat. That was a good thing.
I see a lot of drivers do that too, regardless if somebody's there or not.
Yeah, it don't matter.
They probably slapped a Tesla badge on their Tahoe and thought that was okay.
Yeah, and it had to, and you could actually a car. It showed a shaded car to your side when you're going by, and of course, blind spot indicators are real common now. Most cars have those, but this was an enhanced blind spot indicator, which I thought was really neat.
Yeah. So Ian,
can I mention?
Yeah, go ahead.
It actually gets better every day because it kind of tracks where you're driving and it updates it. There's over 1 billion miles that have been driven on this autopilot, and it gets better every day. It tells the next Tesla going by, like, oh, they're doing construction work here. There's something going on.
Wow.
So it gets better every day. There's over-the-air updates. I think it was like Consumer Reports. They tested this thing, and they weren't happy with the brakes, so they did an update to this car. They sent it over the air. It's got internet in it over the air, and then they tweaked the ABS brakes, and it stopped 20 feet shorter.
Wow.
Like it's amazing. It's a car that gets better as it goes along. It's not too many cars can do that. It blows.
Yeah,
my
most
mind.
of them go the other way. Ian, so how long until you get one?
Oh man, I don't have a garage right now. That's the only thing holding me back. I need somewhere to charge it at.
Yeah.
Ian, tell us what you and your wife do. What kind of work you do?
My wife, she's a manufacturing engineer over at Textron, and I'm an engineer out of SRS.
And see, it stands for a reason that you love electronics and you love really nice toys like that, don't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But and a little misconception. I mean, you saw my truck. It was just to balance the tires. They had to get the mud off of it. Sorry about that, by the way. I'm a country boy, but and a lot of people think the electric cars are kind of like hippie cars, but this thing, if you just take a ride in it, it will blow your mind. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, I want to tell you that I really do appreciate you coming by and giving us the opportunity to look at it, giving us the opportunity to ride in there, because we enjoyed that a lot. And again, I've looked at them, I've followed them, and I want the one that went out in space. I love that.
Go ahead and get it, Aaron.
One just like that one, but because I do love small cars, I drive a Miata most of the time. But that was really neat, and I want to say thank you very much for swinging by and giving us the opportunity to ride in that and giving so much information on it.
My pleasure.
Okay, and when you get one, I want you to bring it by and show it to me. We appreciate it.
He's got to leave it for a week or two.
Yeah, got to leave it for a week. We got to check it out really well.
Run.
John Ryan, it is already time for a break, and I want to, as soon as we get back, we'll be going to Ron, we'll be going to Don.
Yep.
And we'll be answering those questions, and we'll probably go ahead and give out a tech tip quiz if we get time.
Okay.
Okay,
we'll play it by ear
as soon as we return with the CNC Auto Show. Mustang Sally.
I hope they had that on mute.
That's enough of that, right?
For sure.
Okay, welcome back to the CNC Auto Show. What is it?
Oh, no, I was just telling you to watch over there, but keep talking.
Okay. All right, we are back with you with the CNC Auto Show. And if you do have a question about your car, truck, or SUV, you give us a call. That number, 706-863-5800. That's Saturday mornings, 8:05 to 10. All you have to do is pick up that phone and call. And John Ryan, we have Ron on the line. Correct. And he has a 2000 Tacoma.
Yeah. See, your eyes are better than you thought.
I know. See, it's doing good. It's just that thing's been out of focus all the other time.
I think your eyes were out of focus, but keep going.
All right. Ron, what can we help you with? And welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. Look, this Tacoma's got a chipmunk nest in the heater blower.
Mm-hmm.
I took it apart and we cleaned it out. Do you think it hurt the restriction on that if I tried to find where the little varmint was coming in from the outside, and I'm assuming it's that fresh air vent under the passenger side fender well.
Ron,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Did you see that movie Christmas Vacation or what? No, the first one, Vacation, to where he had tied the leash to the back of the bumper
Yeah, I remember
And-
that.
With
and-
the poor dog.
Yeah, and he was saying, "Oh, poor little fella. He probably tried to keep up for miles." Just think how that little varmint felt in your thing with that blower motor going wide open like
Yeah,
that.
he went for a ride.
All right, sorry about that. You were talking about the fender well. Now, what was it?
Would you think it'd be possible? I mean, pulling that, I think that'd be too extreme. Would it be feasible to take, say, like a chore boy or chore girl stainless steel and put it up in that pipe that dumps into the heater reservoir where the fan motor is?
Yeah, and Ron, you are talking about on the exterior of the car, right? Not the recirculating door on the inside?
Right.
Yeah, a lot of vehicles have almost just a typical screen, like a window screen over it, and some of them are even secured with it literally looks like a staple. Some of those, like Toyotas do have stuff like that. I wonder if that one's missing. I can't think of that one in my head, but it wouldn't hurt to restrict it with something like a screen or an expanded metal or something that you could form in there. Now, I wouldn't restrict it with anything, obviously tight knit or any piece of foam or anything like that, because that would definitely cause a restriction for the blower motor.
Mm-hmm.
That plastic liner that's inside the wheel well, could I access it, you think, from popping that plastic liner out?
You should be able to. That way you can kind of get your hands up in there to where you could secure something off to kind of restrict it again, block it off. But the biggest thing is catch the varmint.
Oh, yeah. JR, this thing set up permanent resident.
Did he?
I mean, it
He had a hotel in there, huh?
Now,
it had acorns in there. It was set. It was open for a long time living there.
Yeah.
Was he left in there, or in other words, did it kill him, or is he gone?
No, it didn't kill him. I'm assuming he took off when the fan.
Ron,
came
you took
on.
his house away, man. Take it back and park it there and let him enjoy things.
If I had the chance, Aaron, I'd take his life away.
Yeah.
Poor little fella.
What other? Since we got the peanut gallery chiming in on y'all's diagnostic work, that fellow with the transmission, if I remember correctly, he called last week. He come from Florida up, and he was having problems with his transmission. This is my recommend. This happened to me before, and I would recommend it, is to jack the vehicle up and have it to where you can get up underneath there with your creeper and move around real fast and carry a flashlight, no tools, just a flashlight and at least a 357 Magnum.
Okay.
Because no doubt he has got a alligator embedded underneath his hood.
That happens.
And they'll cause these problems.
Yeah, and I wouldn't recommend doing what you're talking about with really long hair, though.
No, that actually that helps you diagnose it.
That's right. It's kind of like bait being thrown out there, and they'll come for it.
Ron, believe it or not, this is kind of random, but we had a Crown Vic one time that the customer was complaining of a bad tire vibration, and we put it up on the rack, removed the tires, and something caught our eye. There was a box spring mattress wrapped around the drive shaft. All the steel, the cords, the construction of it was wrapped around there. It took us 2 hours to get that thing out.
You wonder where they go for joyrides.
Yeah. I'll dump, I guess. I don't know.
Guys, y'all have a great weekend. Enjoying your show.
Well, hey, thank you.
Good luck with the Tacoma.
And we appreciate the call. Okay, number to call, 706-863-5800, Saturday mornings, 8:05 to 10. And John Ryan, who will we be talking to?
Let's go to Don real quick. We've got 2 minutes, so we might have to put him on
Hey,
hold.
Don, welcome to the show, and what can we help you with?
I've got a 91 Silverado Chevrolet pickup, 350. It's got 380,000 miles on it.
That's all?
Never has been into. And it still runs good. It smokes a little bit, but the problem I'm having is when I pull into a parking place, a tight turn, as you pull up in it and kind of really tight turn into it, pull up and stop, it shuts off on you. Or if I pull into, say, a driveway and going to turn around and I pull up in the driveway and go from drive to reverse, it stalls down on me.
Yeah.
It runs good. It never skips, never jumps. It never done anything like that. Once in a while, when you pull up to a stop sign, it may stall as you sitting
Aaron,
there.
I'm gonna give you one chance to guess what it is. I feel confident in this one.
Well,
I know what it is.
I'm going to say dirty throttle body recommending induction service, but I got a feeling you must be thinking about something different than that.
No,
because you knew that I would say induction service.
I just about bet money on it, but I'm gonna give Don some suspense. We're gonna put him.
All right,
on
here we
hold,
go. Let's do it, Don. You ready?
No, I'm gonna put him through the break real quick because I want to explain what's happening.
Okay, so we're going to take a break, and then Don is going for Don to actually get the answer. He has to hold on for us.
Yep.
Is that good with you, Don?
Okay.
All right. Well, we're going to be right back after this break with more of the CNC Auto Show.
Before I hauled a Barbie doll bed for the girl next door. She tried to pay me with a kiss, and I began to understand there's something.
And we do welcome you back to the CNC Auto Show. If you have a question about your car, truck, or your SUV, you just give us a call. That number 706-863-5800. You can watch the show live at ccautoshow.com. And John Ryan, you have me in suspense now. You were talking to Don.
Yep.
And he told us what was wrong with the vehicle. Well, I'm going to go ahead and
Well,
open up.
I did have one.
I'm going to open up and tell everybody. You told me what it most likely was during the break, and I'm going to have to agree 100%.
Well, I just have one question for Don. Don, when it does stall out like you're describing, you turn into a parking spot, is it a quick stall, like almost somebody shut the key off, or does it kind of run rough and then just kind of die off?
It just dies out.
Okay, just boom. You have a bad distributor. What happens, Don? We used to do so many of those. I actually really, really like that engine. Still like that engine. And there's a sensor in there that, of course, tells it basically when the engine's rotating, how fast the engine's rotating. It's the ignition pickup, and it's a magnetic sensor, and it gets cracks in it, and it's actually sending out a weaker signal than, say, a brand new one. And the reason why it drives fine, it does great, because it's with RPM, the signal, I guess you could say it gets stronger, but it's not that it gets
actually
stronger.
Multiplies because of the magnets being broke. If you're watching it on a scan tool, it'll look like the RPMs are
Way
going up on
yeah.
the scan tool, but the actual RPMs will be coming down because the computer's saying, oh, it's going too fast, I got to lower it.
Pull it down.
And it'll keep pulling it down. It's the craziest thing you ever seen as far as looking at it like that.
But either way, that's most likely what it needs. Of course, we always say that just to kind of put a shade of gray to it. There's other possibilities, but that is by far the most common.
We used to put just the sensor on there, but by
you
far
can buy
now
a whole
you're ahead.
Yeah.
Remanufactured or even new distributors or remanufacturers come down in price so much.
Yep.
You're ahead just put the whole distributor in there, and that way you get the module and the pickup coil all together.
Well, there's the other issue too, like the bushing if it has
the
play
bushing
in it
wears
and all that
out.
kind of stuff. So, Don, that's most likely what the repair is for you. Still urge you to get some diagnostics, unless it's just one, you don't mind putting a little money into, because it probably needs a distributor either way. Full tune-up, recommend that at the same time, mainly because you got everything.
The technician you can actually see that magnet. If you pull the cap off and look at that, it looks like a little star, an inward star. But if you look at it, it looks like the magnet's all cracked up looking in there. You know that it's going to need that, and then that way...
That's called driveway diagnostics.
Yeah, driveway diagnostics, and you know it would need it. Now, Don, I have to ask you, though, was that worth the wait?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
So the item you're talking about is in the distributor cap.
Well, it's in the distributor housing itself. Like Aaron said,
Under the cap.
You could technically replace it, but I'll be honest with you, the cost involved, you still got to take it out. You're way better off just buying a reman or even a new one for the cost.
Yeah.
Distributor.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I got you.
And you can get a loaded one. They come with a cap and rotor button and everything.
And if you plan on doing it yourself, give us a call back, because there's some tips to getting that old one out that you may want to know about.
I would be getting y'all to do it. But another question for you. My son said he had a truck just like mine, and his problem turned out to be, and let's see if this makes sense to you, that he said it done the exact same crazy things, but it was the fuel pressure.
That can do it.
It can, but it normally runs out of gas. Like the different scenario would be you pull in the parking spot, and it kind of runs rough.
Or you come outside and start to crank your car and it won't start again. Yours does sound a lot more like that little magnet piece. And like John Ryan mentioned, we replace so many of those things. But without question, a fuel pump can be the problem. And there's probably about 5 or 6 other things that we could name that may be.
I mean, we've seen coils drop out, all that kind of stuff.
That part John Ryan mentioned is by far the most likely thing that would have the symptoms that you describe.
And the easy test, like you said, pull the cap off, look for the cracks. If you don't see the cracks, it may be better to do diagnostics. If you see the cracks, it needs it anyways.
Exactly.
I got you.
All
I
right.
appreciate it.
All
Thank
right.
you so much.
Thank you.
We thank you very much. John Ryan, this is next phone call is one I've been looking at on the screen. I said, I'm looking forward to talking to this person. And it is Margot, and all they got near the name, it says electric cars. So I'm looking forward to talking to Margot about electric cars. Margot, welcome to the CNC Auto Show.
Hi, guys. I really love your show. I've got some information and a question, all having to do with electric cars.
We are ready.
You were talking about support systems for electric cars, and I had some anxiety about that too, but over the last couple of years, I've been doing some checking, and there's 4 places that I know of that you can get electric cars charged. Now, 2 of them aren't here in Augusta anymore, but one was at Georgia Power. They had some for their employees, but they also had a commercial one. I don't know if those charging stations are still there on Walton Way. I haven't gone by and checked out since they closed. Another one was Whole Foods, had 2 charging stations, and they had a fast and a slow charging station. I didn't get any further into that, but I was just checking that out in the parking lot. So I'm thinking that's probably nationwide at all Whole Foods.
Oh, it is getting much better. I looked at a map this morning because we were talking about it, and John Ryan and I were talking about it a little earlier. As far as regular charging stations, you're correct. You see them all over the place now. As a matter of fact, most newer hotels and even a lot of older hotels that you pull in now,
parking garages also.
Yeah, they have a parking, a charging area. As a matter of fact, the one I was at, what was it, a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I pulled in, I parked in a different spot, but it said electric vehicle charging stations only used while charging. So in other words, once your car's charged up, you need to move it to a different parking place. But yeah, the regular charging now, Tesla has a theirs. I did not see near as many, for instance, but I did see 2 in this area, 2 in several in Atlanta, as far as for Tesla. Now, I'm assuming that you can also charge a Tesla up with a standard charging port.
You can, yep.
But I don't know if it goes as fast. But there's the map that I looked at had the little T's in a lot of places for the Tesla, little red T. And then also it had a lot of shaded out for regular charging.
Right.
And they are all over the place. So, yes, it's becoming more and more feasible to get one of the, to have an electric vehicle and be able to make trips in it.
Yep, and that was my number 4. And guess what? We have 10 Tesla charging stations here locally at Steak and Shake out on Bel Air Road.
I didn't know there was 10 of them. I knew it listed
10.
one there.
I guessed at 6, but I see them, yeah.
They put 10 there because they've got a sandwich I'm particular to. And, they're open 24 hours. So
yeah.
you could park there, and there's plenty of motels up the street, and where most Steak and Shakes are near centers of motels, too. So that's another idea. But are Tesla stations dedicated just only to Tesla cars, or do they take others also?
Now,
that's a very good question.
I am not.
Do they have like a standard hookup for all electric cars, or is that not?
No, there is different hookups, but if I'm not mistaken, you're able to. You can go to a standard type charging station, but also I think it charges much faster. A Tesla will charge much faster with a Tesla charging station. Now that part I'm not absolutely sure about, so maybe we can get a caller. We might even be able to get Ian to call in, and he would probably know a lot about that also.
Yeah,
gain more information.
That wasn't my question, though.
Okay.
I don't want to use that up as my. Okay, my question was about. I saw a Nissan Leaf in a parking lot somewhere. I was like, oh my gosh, what is that sporty looking little car? And I was like, no way. And in Mother Earth News, they had a special, of course, on electric cars a couple years back. And at that time, and I don't know if this is still true, and this is what I'm asking your listeners about, maybe somebody knows, they were talking about Nissan was going to have a battery exchange for owners every 3 to 5 years, depending on usage, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I was curious about how much are they compared. I know the Tesla's about the cheapest one is what, 32,000 now.
Right.
Yes, that's a
they
very
recently
base
dropped it?
Model 3. Yes.
Right, but what about the price of a Nissan Leaf? That was my question.
You know, I'm not
anybody
sure the
know?
price. I think those, now this is my idea from memory from reading, in the $30,000 range, but they are partially subsidized, if I'm not mistaken, and that brings their cost down to that. So I don't know what the actual cost is. But, you know, that's a
By
good
who?
idea if we had a caller that might have a Leaf that may be able to call in and give us some ideas.
Information on it.
Also, I'd be interested in knowing what the range is on a Nissan Leaf now, because there was at one time years back the range wasn't near what I had hoped for it to be.
Right.
But there's been a recent study now. I think it was last year. On there were 5 different types of electric cars that were taken in test, long range, and I know one of them went through like the Sonora Desert, and I was amazed at one of them. I can't remember which one it was, but the mileage range on that one just blew all the other 4 in the competition away.
Wow.
And, you know, battery technology, they say it's supposed to be changing in the next one to where that's been one of the huge drawbacks of the electric vehicles. And I don't know if that's
you're
still
right.
true or not.
It is getting better and better as time goes on. I tell you what, Margot, stay tuned, because we'll hope that someone will call in that will share some information on that also. Great questions. I love it. And it's we're going to take a real quick break. We'll be back after this.
I've been driving all night, my hands wet on the wheel.
And welcome back to the CNC Auto Show. And John Ryan's been doing some research on electric cars, because we did want to answer some of the questions that Margot had for us a little earlier. And the price of the Nissan Leaf listed on the internet is roughly $36,000.
Well, that's for the high end model.
The high end, and I was saying around 30,000. So I'm close. But if I'm not mistaken, the government does subsidize some of that. Now, I'm not positive how all that works, if it comes in the form of rebates. Maybe somebody can tell us. And the range of the Leaf. Now, the reason I wanted to ask that question is many years back, it used to be something like 80 miles, which to me was unacceptable. But
for
then,
the cost,
yeah, for the cost. But then it moved on up to 150, and you mentioned that the newer versions are
it says on
2 to 225.
Yeah, 2 to 225, different battery packs available.
Okay, and how long to recharge a Tesla with a regular 240? In other words, in your house.
Yeah, so if you charge
it
it at your house, you're looking at about 10 hours.
And if they were to go to a Tesla charging station, high-speed charge?
I guess they call it the supercharge station. Looks like 3.5 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that gives us some rough ideas. We have a little bit more knowledge on electric cars.
That's just real quick, research on it too.
That's fast research.
It's called Googling.
Yeah. Where are we going?
All right, let's go to Pat.
Hey, Pat, welcome to the CNC Auto Show, and what can we help with?
Yes, I have a 2009 Cadillac Escalade, and I had a radiator burst, so I changed it out. And after I replaced it, I noticed that the StabiliTrak light was illuminated and the traction control light was on.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any sensor or something that I may have impacted when I changed out that radiator?
No, there's not much up there that has any tie-in with the radiator. A lot of that system is based off of the wheel speeds. Of course, there's speed sensors in each wheel. By any chance, is the message flashing? Does it say service StabiliTrak, or what does the message say? Is it a light?
It's service StabiliTrak, and the traction control is on solid.
Traction control's on silent. I mean, there's a few things that you could do to try and get it out yourself, but then you'll never know what it was. It would be a great idea to get that vehicle scanned to see what code's in there, because it'd be hard to believe it's a coincidence, obviously, because of what happened. You would think it's a coincidence, so it'd be hard to believe that it just all of a sudden happened. But there's really not much up there that, could be disturbed, especially by the coolant. Now, the only thing that being said is, of course, obviously, if coolant was leaking all over the engine, area, there's a possibility of engine coolant getting in one of the harnesses, could be in the wheel speed harness, something like that, which, of course, wouldn't be anything you caused, but definitely could cause an issue with some of the sensor readings. So I think really, I would advise you to get the code scanned. If you just wanted to take a gamble at it, didn't care anything about it, you could disconnect the battery, both terminals, let it sit for about 10 minutes, put it back together, and just see if that light stays off. If it comes back on, there is an issue with the system.
And what I normally tell
much.
people, though, when they ask if something that we did could have caused something, I always mention that every technician has elbows.
Yep.
And so you can be working on one thing and an elbow may hit something else, or like John Ryan mentioned, coolant get in something else. So I think knowing what the code is would
that way
help
you know
a
if
lot.
it popped up later on, like, oh, it's probably this or something like that.
Exactly.
Well, thank you all very much.
So, all right, Pat, thanks.
Great call, Pat. Thank you. And the number to call, 706-863-5800. Saturday mornings, 8:05 to 10. And John Ryan, we got Ron, and it's showing that he may have either a question or a comment having to do with an electric car.
All right.
Ron, welcome back to the show, and what can we help with?
Hi, guys. I talked to a couple of local people here with Teslas. The first one was at a car show, and he had a brand new white Model S, beautiful car.
Yeah.
I mean, futuristic looking. But I asked him, I said, if I want to go from here to Miami, how do I get there without running out of charge? He said that you go on your computer on the car, program your map, and Tesla tells you which way you have to go in order to get to charging stations before you run out of charge.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
The second person I talked to last week, I stopped in Steak and Shake to get one of those delicious milkshakes, and a gentleman, he had a Model S, which is the big one.
Yes.
He bought it brand new in 2014, and he was charging his, and I said, how long and how far can you go? He said, well, I live locally here, so I'm just going to charge for 20 minutes, and I can get about 120-mile range in that. But also, he didn't have to pay for charging because he had one of the earlier models.
Right. I think those are grandfathered in.
Mm-hmm.
Right. They have to pay for charging now. But I didn't ask how much that would be.
Well, I did talk to Ian about
cost.
that a little bit when as he was driving his car, and I think he said that the one that he was driving had unlimited charging also. But he mentioned that they were it charged for about 3 hours, cost him about $10.
That's not bad.
or one person that he had talked to had said that. So I don't think the charging is going to be very expensive. Of course, the time in some cases can be a little bit prohibitive. And, of course, going on a trip, and you may have to go out of your way just a little bit to get that type charging. Now, of course, you can have a charging station put in at your house, in your garage, and in many cases that would putting the charging mechanism in there would probably run about in the $500 range, mostly basic electrician work to be
or
done.
you just unplug your dryer.
Or unplug the dryer, either one, and that would give you a charging range. It would be a much slower charge though, and it would take about 8 hours to get a full charge.
I think it says on a
way.
50 amp circuit, it's 10 hours of charge time. So
yeah.
What kind of range would you get with that 10-hour charge?
Okay, now if I'm not mistaken, that was on a Tesla. That was in the 300-mile range. Might even been a little bit more than that. Now on that Nissan Leaf that we looked at,
it was pretty sad, to be honest with you.
What's that?
I didn't think that range was very good for the Leaf.
In the beginning, it was terrible, but now
that's what I'm talking about. Yeah,
it's getting
better.
within reason now. Many years ago, I remember when the Leaf, they were saying like 80 miles, and I said, well, that just wouldn't work
Right.
with me.
I remember that.
But now they're moving on up to 225. That's about how far I go in my Miata before I need gas.
Yeah,
So it's really not that terrible. But of course, I gas up in about 3 minutes and hit the road again. So
that and it's readily available.
Yeah. But I think the main thing that we accomplished today, as far as talking about this, is the system, the infrastructure, and the vehicles. By that, the range, the price, the power, the electronics on these are getting better and better every single day that goes by. And not to mention, I don't think there's many things going to surpass that Tesla that I rode in as far as assisted driving.
Right.
It was just as smooth as it could be. I would feel very comfortable just letting go of the wheel and driving down the interstate in that part.
Well, you also do that in your Prius, and it doesn't even have that system.
And I just jump in the back seat and open up a Coca-Cola and
have at it.
Tesla Model S with the high performance package. From what I read in my car magazines, that's one of the quickest cars in the world.
Yeah.
It's like 0 to 62 in 2.3 seconds.
That's what it felt like. It was really neat. I loved it. Yeah.
Okay, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. John Ryan, if I had one of them, a Tesla S, high performance, no question, I would have a ticket.
Oh, yeah.
Early in the morning.
Yeah.
Okay. John Ryan, we are out of time, man.
Yep.
The time clock's on E, and we need to pull over for now, but we will be back on the road in no time. I'm Aaron Clements with co-host John Ryan Mooney. Our show producers are Joe Irick and Sandy Dean. Our technical engineer is Zach Llewellyn. And we would all like to say thank you to all of you that tuned in, logged in, and especially all of you that called in to ride with us on the CNC Auto Show.